What I'm about to tell you about Henry VIII will make you question everything you thought you knew about history's most infamous king. Picture this: a corpse so putrid that wooden coffins explode, servants fleeing in horror from a smell that penetrates stone walls, a man so paranoid he sleeps with loaded weapons, yet so grotesquely obese he can't even stand without mechanical assistance. You've heard the sanitized version, 6 wives, Church of England, Renaissance monarch. But the real story, it's the stuff of nightmares. What if I told you that Henry VIII's own body became his prison, that his eating habits were so bizarre they bordered on madness, that his treatment of women went far beyond execution into realms of psychological torture so twisted it would make serial killers blush? The man you're about to meet isn't the king from your history books. He's something far more terrifying. A walking horror story who happened to rule one of the most powerful nations on earth. Are you ready for the truth? Because once you know what Henry VIII really was, you'll never see royal history the same way again. Begin with his flesh. In his final years, Henry became a living catastrophe. His belly measured 54 inches around. His body carried roughly 400 pounds when typical men barely reached 140. Massive putrid sores consumed his legs, wounds that refused to close. The odor, so nauseating that nobles pressed scented fabric against their nostrils. Witnesses claimed the putrid smell traveled through multiple chambers. Attendants literally gambled to avoid dressing duties because proximity meant torment, yet his body told only part of the story. Contemporary analysis suggests he sustained severe head trauma during a 1536 jousting mishap, 2 hours unconscious, essentially pronounced dead by medieval standards. That brain damage probably triggered the personality transformation, converting a hopeful young monarch into the suspicious dictator history remembers. He likely also battled Cushing's disease, accounting for his erratic temperament, massive weight gain, and those nightmarish ulcerations. His physicians, absolutely petrified to acknowledge reality, diagnosing royal illness could earn immediate execution. During his last years, he lost control of basic bodily functions. Special transport chairs carried him between rooms. This same man would murder you for an inappropriate glance. Now examine his marriages. 6 women total. 2 faced execution, but their suffering transcended mere death. It was calculated psychological destruction. Anne Boleyn didn't simply die, she was systematically destroyed. Her court musician endured torture until confessing fabricated adultery. Henry forced her to witness 5 men's executions, including her own brother, for allegedly bedding her. Then came her turn. Catherine Howard was barely an adult when he wed her. Upon discovering her romantic past, he created legislation making it treasonous to marry the king while concealing sexual history. He literally invented laws driven by pure vindictiveness. Catherine of Aragon spent her remaining years imprisoned, banned from contact with her child. Henry circulated stories about her mental instability. She perished in isolation, potentially poisoned, still composing letters to a king who ignored them completely. Anne of Cleves was so terrified she accepted a fraudulent annulment simply to survive. She actually thanked him for sparing her life. Jane Seymour, natural death following childbirth to Henry's sole male heir. Henry was already arranging his next wedding within 9 days of her burial. These women had 0 options. Divorce didn't exist. Escape guaranteed death. Resistance could destroy your entire bloodline. Think modern competitive eating seems extreme. Consider Henry VIII's daily consumption patterns. This ruler didn't just feast royally, he ate as though personally eliminating England's entire food reserves. Henry devoured approximately 5,000 daily calories, over twice what healthy adult males require. Remember, by life's end, he was practically immobile. Standard dining, complete roasted swine, numerous fowl, assorted seafood, bread mountains, plus enough wine to fill storage cellars. His kitchens generated over 800 distinct preparations daily for the royal household. More than 200 staff labored continuously feeding him. The strangest aspect wasn't volume, it was reasoning. Henry believed specific foods possessed supernatural properties. Swan consumption would grant elegance, venison would improve hunting skills, and oysters would enhance intimate performance. He gorged on these items like medieval performance enhancers. His dining ceremonies were equally strange. Multiple servants pre-tasted every morsel, checking for toxins. Then he'd wait 30 minutes monitoring for their potential deaths before consuming anything himself. Each meal became theatrical spectacle, lasting 4 hours, with courtiers obligated to observe him slowly devouring enough sustenance for entire villages. Never assume he ate humbly. He prohibited foods like turnips and barley from court, not for health reasons, but because commoners ate them. Meanwhile, he was literally decomposing internally from excessive sugar and meat consumption. Despite declining health, Henry continued eating. He genuinely believed kingship granted immunity from gluttony's consequences. Now consider his paranoia, because it didn't merely control his thoughts, it controlled an empire. By life's end, Henry had transformed his kingdom into a surveillance empire. He slept surrounded by loaded crossbows, daggers beneath pillows, and armed sentries in his chamber. Assassination fears were so intense he literally couldn't sleep without guards watching him. He constructed hidden corridors throughout his palaces, not for romantic escapes or avoiding crowds, but as emergency evacuation routes during potential attacks. He installed spy holes in walls to monitor his own nobles and eavesdropping mechanisms in conference chambers to capture secret discussions. The paranoia escalated beyond reason. Henry established a surveillance network to monitor his own intelligence agents. Trust became extinct. People faced execution simply for unfortunate timing or location. Court existence transformed into perpetual nightmare. One wrong comment to the wrong individual and you'd vanish forever. His poison obsession reached ridiculous extremes. Food samplers, secured kitchens, guards monitoring preparation, multiple testers for seasonings and beverages. Dining became tactical warfare. He even distrusted his own daughters, Mary and Elizabeth, suspecting conspiracies. He had them surveilled and monitored like dangerous rebels, despite being mere children. Here's the most chilling aspect. He began executing people for uncommitted crimes. A vision, gossip, mere suspicion, sufficient grounds for death. The Tower of London overflowed with innocent victims trapped in his terror web. His paranoia contaminated everyone. Aristocrats spied on peers, servants betrayed employers. The entire court existed in terror, wondering who would be next. You'd assume Henry VIII's reign of horror would conclude with his death, correct? Absolutely wrong. This man was so devoted to destruction that even his remains managed to create pandemonium. During his final weeks, Henry was so enormously immobile that attendants had to transport him everywhere using specially engineered chairs with wheels and pulley systems. But here's the revolting detail. His infected leg wounds were so putrid that flesh chunks literally detached from his body during movement. Servants had to trail behind with cloths, collecting the decomposing royal debris he scattered across palace floors. His death scene resembled pure horror cinema. His body had inflated to such ghastly dimensions that his skin appeared stretched and glossy. The stench was so overpowering that even his physicians, professionals accustomed to medieval wounds and diseases, had to flee the room and vomit. When he finally perished, nobody wanted to approach close enough for confirmation, but it deteriorated further. Henry's corpse was so distended with decomposition gases that his coffin required special reinforcement. They wrapped him in lead sheets, sealed him within multiple wooden containers, and hoped it would contain everything. It failed. During the funeral procession from London to Windsor Castle, his coffin detonated. The pressure from accumulated gases caused the lead lining to rupture, spraying putrid royal remains throughout the hearse interior. The odor was so horrendous, the procession halted while servants cleaned the mess with buckets and rags. Here's a detail that will terrorize your nightmares. Dogs were reportedly observed licking the remains that had leaked from the coffin onto the roadway. Henry's death was so traumatic that several servants who handled his corpse died within weeks, possibly from infections contracted while managing his remains. So, there you have it, the authentic Henry VIII, not the bold, magnetic monarch from your textbooks, but a walking catastrophe, betrayed by his own flesh as dramatically as he betrayed everyone else. a man so consumed by suspicion and gluttony that he transformed a mighty empire into his personal horror theatre. The most powerful ruler in England? He died imprisoned by his own decay, and even death couldn't prevent him from spreading chaos. His legacy isn't merely the Church of England or his 6 marriages, it's a masterclass in how absolute authority can transform a human into something genuinely monstrous.